Good morning. My name is Ricardo Villadiego. I am the founder and CEO of Lumo Technologies, and it's a pleasure to join you today at the Virtual Cybersecurity Summit, Detroit edition. I'm live from Miami, and we're going to run a parallel between a book that Stephen Covey wrote in 1989 about the 7 habits of highly effective people, which became a bestseller book. We're going to do a parallel on what would be the 7 habits of a highly cybersecurity operator. Without further ado, let's go into each one of those habits. Let's start with the first one. And the first one has to do with how we operationalize existing frameworks that add context to the incident that we are managing. And there are many frameworks out there, but there's particularly one that I think add a lot of value. Why? Because you can serve the vast amount of data behind each one of the adversaries and the techniques that they use. The metric attack framework was built for that. It helps any cybersecurity operation to go beyond identifier of compromise or IOCs and understand what are the techniques behind that adversary. Why this is important? Well, it is important because it helps you to add context to the incident that you are managing at a specific point. It makes you more productive when you're trying those incidents, and it helps you to build resilience because now you have the specific techniques and tactics that each one of the incidents that affects your organization are bringing to the equation, and it helps to identify what are those techniques that you need to make sure that your red team pays attention to, and or the blue teams defend better, because are the techniques that are how the adversaries are affecting your organization. And at Lumo, we built in our tool the instant creation of the attack matrix for each one of the incidents that we detect for the customers that we are protecting. But we went one step further. Each incident has its own attack matrix, but the consolidation of the multiple incidents that your organization is facing provides or produces the attack matrix of your entire enterprise. Why this is important? Well, it is important because now you get to know the complete threat landscape on how bad guys are trying to affect your organization. What are the tactics and techniques that the bad guys as a whole are attempting to use or using against your organization? I encourage you to learn more about that if you go to our website and click on the attack matrix feature. The second habit has to do with identifying the tools that provide the maximum value to your team. When I've been working with enterprises, often the conversation is about the tool versus how the tool empower the people that are managing the tool. And I am a firm believer that if we don't operate cybersecurity professionally and actively, we're just playing Russian roulette with our cybersecurity and ultimately with our enterprise. The tools that we select are tools that empower the people to make a better operation of cybersecurity, that empower the people to get better foresight into how they can defend better their organization. The third habit, it's how you use internal signal first. It's often the case that we're trying to identify the tool that we don't have, right? That's the tool that is going to fix all my problems. And I think that concept is anchored in our psychological belief that we value more what we don't have versus what we have. And what we have is truly what counts. It's truly what adds value to the organization. And what we have in cybersecurity are our internal signals. What are those internal signals? The metadata that my network is producing. That network metadata
is free, is available all the time, is more reliable because it reflects the way my organization is behaving. It truly produces the insights of how my network is being affected or not by adversaries. A network that's compromised behaves differently. It's available 24/7 basis to me. It's my network. I control that metadata for the most part. And it has concrete information, like I said before, on um, we what are the attacks that are affecting my organization. And specifically on that, at Lumo, we built a feature that we call spam box. It's the emails that my email security tools are stopping are um, are good, but it's way better than we analyze that data. And I think the market has the consensus that about 91% of the attacks start with an email, but we become complacent with that, right? We're happy to know that my email security tool is stopping those emails, but we rarely go one step beyond. We rarely um, go and ingest those emails that were stopped by email security tool and analyze those emails with what intention? With the intention to know who is attacking you, who's trying to attack my organization, and how. Those two things are very important. And it's data that I have. It's my sole discretion to use it. It's available to me. And when you get to know that information and you correlate that with the network metadata, the results may surprise you because there may be attacks that were stopped by your email security tool. However, those attacks are getting traffic from your network. If that is the case, then the conclusion is evident. What's the conclusion? Even though the email security tool stopped those attacks, the bad guys are being successful in contacting your employees. Otherwise, we shouldn't see network metadata associated with those attacks, or in some other way they have been effective on getting through your email security tool. That's the value of using my internal signals first. Habit number 4, let's put threat intelligence to work. As I said before, in my 20 plus years of working with enterprises, deploying cybersecurity tools, and helping them operate cybersecurity, one of the comments that I often get is management doesn't give me the budget to buy this last threat intelligence feed that I need to do my work better. However, most of the time, the effort that is required to get the value, to extract the value of that threat intelligence tool is dismissed. And the tools by itself doesn't add value. The information by itself, the intelligence by itself doesn't add value. You know what add value? The process that you create and how to operationalize that information systematically, continuously, and intentionally. That's how you get the value. Only once you build that and you get to know and you extract the value of the data that you already have, you have the information that's required to go up into management with data and demonstrate that you require additional threat intel data. But the fundamental process that helps you to do the repetitive work day in and day out, building those foundational elements to systematically, continuously, and intentionally operationalize threat intelligence is what truly is going to add value to your organization. Nowadays, finding threat intel data is not a hard thing. It's relatively easy. The hard thing is how you correlate all that data in a way that is effective. How you instrument all that data and correlate that data with your network signals to provide the value that you need to build the next habit. And what is that next habit? Is threat hunting capabilities. We need to build those abilities a cohesive cybersecurity strategy requires the ability to go one step further. We need to hunt for the adversary as opposed to wait for the adversary to produce a signal. It's much more effective if we go and hunt for the adversary. How you can do that? When you instrument effectively the network metadata and the threat intelligence data across a process that systematically enables you to go and hunt for the adversary, to build hypotheses, to test hypotheses, to identify the who, the what, the where, and the when, the why and the how of each and every threat actor within your network. That's the best way to get the value from the threat intel data that you are obtaining. Number 7, and I'm getting through the end of the 7 habits, mitigation and remediation. Don't skip either. Often, I also find that we're complacent with mitigation. We tell an organization that their specific endpoints are attempting to contact an adversary, and they're just happy to see that the firewall is blocking that. Well, I get that they're happy to see that, but you know what will make me happier? If we go and find what is the device that is attempting that and understand why it is attempting that. Because only that you're really eliminating the residual compromise that may affect your organization. Mitigation is good, but it's just one step in the process of an effective incident management strategy. You have to mitigate, you have to eliminate or minimize the possibility of your assets being in contact with adversarial infrastructure, but it's much, much effective if you remediate, if you eliminate the compromises, the residual compromises that reside in your endpoints. That's how you're truly moving into the state of zero compromise. When you get a device that is consistently attempting to contact adversarial infrastructure, you're one step closer to get compromised. Yes, it is mitigated today, but tomorrow you change your rules on your firewalls, or tomorrow you upgrade to a new firewalls and you forgot to add those rules that were blocking that specific incident, and you're gonna end in a bad spot. Lastly, the 7th habit, consider each day a learning opportunity. In cybersecurity, the more we know, the less we know. And it's true, and it is deeply in the foundation of how attacks work. The adversary has the ability to evolve infinitely. So we always have to learn more. Now, it is much more effective if we have the tools that provides me the time to learn more. Only when I get the tools that empowers me to do my job, to defend my organization effectively and efficiently, now I get time back that I can use to train myself, to keep up with the state of the art, and ensure that I have more skills, more abilities to defend my organization better each and every day. One quote that I like to share with my customers and with the analysts and the press, it's from Bruce Nair, a cybersecurity visionary and guru, and he says that the metadata tells you absolutely everything about somebody's life. If you have enough metadata, you really don't need the content. And that is true in life as it is true in cybersecurity. The way an endpoint contact adversarial infrastructure, if you know that it's contacting adversarial infrastructure, you don't need to know what they exchange to realize that that's a behavior that is not acceptable in your organization. If you accept that behavior, you're one step closer to get compromised. Nothing good happens from your assets in contact with adversarial infrastructure. Now let's move into what we can offer and how we instrument network metadata in a concept that we call continuous compromise assessment. That concept enables enterprises to intentionally look for compromises. Just like we intentionally look for vulnerabilities, and I'm sure all of you had a vulnerability process in place, you're intentionally looking for vulnerabilities, and there is a process that helps you to remediate those vulnerabilities and go on and on and on. Well, that's the same obsession that we get to implement with measuring compromise. Continuous compromise assessment enables to do that, to intentionally look for compromises within the network. And as I said before, if you identify an asset that is exhibiting contact with adversarial infrastructure, you better stop that, because by doing so, you will stop the evil effect that comes after that. Now, implement this in a continuous manner. When you implement this continuously, you're in real time identifying your state of compromises. In real time, you're making decisions based upon the fact of your state of compromise, and that's the best way to move to increase the cyber resilience of your organization. And now, when a compromise, and this is kind of the benefit of this concept, when a compromise is detected, clearly that compromise went through your current cyber defense infrastructure. So there is something that must be tuned within that cyber defense infrastructure to mitigate that compromise and future compromises. And then the value that you get, or the benefit of measuring compromise continuously and intentionally, is that now you have the ability to implement multiple use cases with just one strategy. The market calls continuous compromise assessment extended detection and response. We just prefer to use continuous compromise assessment because that's what you're really doing when you're implementing extended detection and response. You're truly building a culture of measuring compromise, and that's the first use case that most of our customers deploy. The second, as we speak in one of the habits, it's threat hunting. Well, what better than automate the process of threat hunting? Remember that I mentioned in having number 6 or 7, that threat intels only add value when you build a process that systematically extract the value from threat intel and correlate it with your network metadata. But that's exactly what continuous compromise assessment does. It automates that process. So you can ask the platform in real time, if my network being speaking with adversarial infrastructure of ransomware A, B, or C. Because every device produces network metadata, now you have the ability to secure, to measure any device, including your remote workforce that's growing because of the disruption of how we work, driven by the pandemic. So you have now the ability to measure each and every device. And lastly, combat alert fatigue. The more data that we send into the SIEM, and that's how SIEMs and security operations centers have evolved, but the more data we get into those technologies, the less effective those technologies or those groups operate. It's much more efficient when you get to know what are the alerts that matters in your organization. And you know what are the alerts that matters? The alerts that are coming from devices that are exhibiting contact with adversarial infrastructure. That is something that you must not permit within your organization. If you eliminate that, you eliminate the evil effect that comes after that. A little bit of validation and the criticality of measuring compromise. Gartner calls this network detection and response, which is essentially using network metadata to detect threats and respond to threats. We use, like I said, I prefer to call this continuous compromise assessment because that's exactly what you're implementing. But the fun thing, and what Gartner says, and more importantly, what our customers are saying about the deployment of continuous compromise assessment, is that using network metadata, the tool has been able to identify threats that the current cyber defense infrastructure or tools in place weren't able to identify. And I repeat this once and once again. The way your network behaves defines if your network is compromised or not. A network that's compromised behaves differently. Now, something that is amazing to see is the value that enterprises get when they implement this concept. and these are KPIs from a real deployment of one of our customers. In a period of 20 days, the platform ingested about 1.84 billion of element of network metadata, resulting in about 1,600 contacts with adversarial infrastructure consolidated along 58 incidents, with 0% of false positives in this particular case. This is not to say that the tool produce 0% of false positive all the time, but in this particular period of time, those were the metrics. The alert rate is extremely low. 58 incidents across 20 days. That's like 2.9 incidents per day. Tell me, when was the last time that you were able to call it a day after fixing 3 incidents within your organization? Well, that's the level of operational efficiency that Lumo brings to your organization. And what comes next is your ability to make decisions based on fact. What's happening in your network, not what's happening on the company next door, what's happening in your network and how you respond to what's happening in your network. And lastly, getting the peace of mind of knowing your unique state of compromise. Often the C-level is asking for the risk of an organization associated with one specific threat. Getting that answer from current tools is almost impossible. Lumo provides that information to you in black and white. Are you in contact with adversarial infrastructure related with DarkSide? Lumo gives you that information. Or the threat actor that you want to test specifically. That is the peace of mind that Lumo produces for your organization. A little bit more of industry validation from accolades from multiple media outlets and analysts, but more importantly, is a technology that has been deployed in over 1,400 organizations that are in this crusade of measuring compromise in real time, because they have identified as a much more effective way to operate cybersecurity, to be effective tackling the problem. And also the fact that SoftBank and Panoramic Venture invested in Lumo. And as you know, SoftBank tends to invest in the companies that are transforming an industry. Like I said at the beginning, I founded this company with the deep belief that any enterprise, regardless of their size, can operate cybersecurity proficiently. And it all comes with the network metadata, instrumenting the network metadata that you have and providing the capabilities that you need to operate, to integrate and orchestrate that information to identify threats and then responding to those threats in a way that is effective. I'm gonna leave you with a call to action here. I'm getting to the end of my 30 minutes, but the first one is open a free account. A beauty of Lumo is that anyone can open a free account. Go to lumo.io, lumu.io, get a free account, and you can start measuring compromise in your organization today. The next thing that you have to do is using Lumo DNS, public DNS as the DNS of your infrastructure. You're using a DNS today. You're sending that metadata, if not to Lumo, to Google, to Comcast, to whoever is your provider. Use our DNS and you get the value of measuring compromise in your organization. And lastly, invite your coworkers. If you invite your coworkers, the whole organization is on the same page of the compromises that may be affecting the organization. My last slide. Nothing good happens when you're in contact with the adversary, and that is true in nature as it is in cybersecurity. If your network is exhibiting contact with adversary infrastructure, that is something that you don't want to welcome in your organization. Eliminate that, block that, and you're gonna be with the upper hand on winning the battles against the adversary. I'm gonna be in the booth. Ask for me, ask questions, set an appointment. I'd like to go further and explain more how this technology works and what's the benefit and the transformation that we're building to cybersecurity operation nowadays. Thank you very much, and I was glad to be here today.